Very serious prison sentences, such as conspiracy to blackmail, which is 14 years. And we're here in solidarity with Palestine Action and all people taking direct action and organising to stop the production of Israeli weapons in Britain and calling for sanctions on the Israeli state and freedom for the Palestinian people.
Okay.
Media. Today we're covering the British News and Analysis series. I have with me today Salvinder Dillo, who's from the British Workers' Association, and Steve Headley, who is from the Newham Trades Council. Today's the 22nd of December 2023, and we'll start off by covering the latest news of what's happening in Palestine. The United States and United Kingdom authorities say their warships have recently shot down 15 attack drones by Houthis over the Red Sea. Yemen's Houthi rebels represent a direct threat to international commerce and maritime security. So the United States and United Kingdom authorities say their warships have shot down 15 attack drones by Houthis over the Red Sea. It stated that the Yemen's Houthi rebels represent a direct threat to international commerce and maritime security, and that the UK remains committed to appealing these attacks to protect the free flow of global trade. I'd like to ask, what is being traded and how can this affect the UK and the US?
Yeah, the Houthis have made it clear, actually, that they're not attacking ships except the ones that are supplying Israel. And that could be arms for Israel, it could be munitions, or it could be just stuff for the Israeli industry or food. All of this stuff helps the Israeli war effort. So the Houthis have made it clear that they're not just randomly attacking ships, that they are only attacking ships that are aiding the Israeli war effort. And it's important because the Houthis, I think, are acting within international law. I think what they're doing is they're putting on a blockade to stop genocide in Gaza. So I think they're acting within the law. And while other Arab countries stand idly by and let this genocide happen, the Houthis are actually doing something to stop it and prevent it. And I think that the Americans and the Saudis and the other people that are in the Americans' pockets don't like the fact that the Houthis are really embarrassing them, because the Houthis are a relatively small force who've carried out really quite spectacular seizures of ships, while big countries like Saudi Arabia and Jordan and the other countries around there, the United Arab Emirates, all of them have just sat on their hands and done nothing. The Houthis are actually participating in the battle.
Salvinder, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, basically, what's really come to my mind, and here is a situation where the United States and its allies have made an alliance in order to stop the Houthis from carrying out this blockade. If they can form an alliance around this, why couldn't they form an alliance to stop the attacks on the Palestinian people by Israel? So in other words, for their economic interests, it's very easy that these countries can get together, make so much noise, and really, it should be there should be no warships going to supply weapons to Israel to carry out the genocide that's taking place. That should be the responsibility of the international community to make sure that these warships are blockaded. And now the Houthis are doing that, what other countries should have done and the United Nations should have done. And so it shows that for their profits and for their economic benefits, they can do all this, but they don't put any value to human lives being lost as a result of the genocide that's taking place.
So do you both think that the Houthis will have a significant impact on the end of this conflict? And is there a chance that this conflict can actually escalate further, including other countries within the region?
Yes, I think they have had an impact, a big impact already too. The biggest shipping firms have suspended going into those waters entirely. So that's a lot of trade that's been lost. And I think what it does do is bring it home to other countries, especially America and those who have supported America, that there's going to be a price to be paid, either an economic price or a military price. So we can only hope that the Houthis are showing a very good example and that other people will take that on board. I mean, no doubt the Americans will cobble together some sort of coalition. It won't be a United Nations force because they know they won't get it through the United Nations. They will cobble together some coalition to attack the Houthis. But there is a risk of escalation. I think that the peoples of the Arab countries, if not the leaders, certainly not the leaders, but the peoples have had enough of this now. And I think there's a real possibility that people will rise up and start taking, and perhaps the armies will start rising up and start taking control and coming to the aid of the people of Palestine. And let's see what develops.
Worldwide support against what Israel is doing, and but it seems the United States and allies are already planning not only to oppose the Houthis carrying the blockade, but perhaps even a ground invasion of Yemen in order to make sure and protect their interest and their economic interests. So it just shows how far they can go, and that could cause an escalation. Not only are they thinking of stopping the Houthis, but they're also very frightened about what Hezbollah can do. And there has been attacks by Hezbollah because they feel very strongly about it. Why should all this genocide take place? So on one hand, you have those who are supporting genocide and the economic interest of the war industry and allying with Israel. On the other hand, the people throughout the world. And only lately, yesterday, in fact, there was a hearing in London, in the Crown Court in Snaresbrook, where some protesters have been standing trial every day, actually, for quite some time, because they were against the companies that are supplying weapons to Israel, and they've taken a firm stand. It shows that the international community is very strong in support of the Palestinian people. It is their strength of the working class or working people throughout the world that is going to have a big impact. And yes, the Houthis and Hezbollah are also scaring Israel, but there is a danger of escalation, sure, in terms of, because that's a very sensitive nerve, the Suez Canal, or any trade through which their ships go.
Okay. So what are the charges on these people?
There are so many that I can't remember all of them. There was an individual assault charge, so there are 8 defendants. So there are several different charges for each and every one. So if I was to list all of them, then you would need probably a new phone, more memory. So what are the remaining ones? Stuff like criminal damage and...
I think criminal damage is one of the principal ones. The blackmail one has been dropped.
Yeah, under the blackmail, they were going to be, they were likely to be jailed for
Serious
10
charge.
years.
Very serious. 14 years.
So,
Very serious.
14 years.
Yeah, conspiracy to blackmail, 14 years.
Okay. So they have dropped it, that charge.
And actions are still taking place every single day.
Yeah.
And every week there are 1 or 2 victories. So, for example, yesterday Fisher German dropped Elbit as a client. This is a commercial landlord.
Yeah, I think they're based more in the north of England. I don't know them. I'm not aware of them here in London, which is German. But I think they're involved with properties. Here. They do. They have more property management in the north, I think.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I'm Andrew, and I've been supporting the Elbit 8 at Snaresbrook Court in North East London. They've shut down 2 weapons factories. They've shut down the Oldham Elbit weapons factory.
So you just mentioned the local campaigns and what's been happening in Snaresbrook in London. Are there still actions that are occurring and organisation that's occurring within East London, Southall?
There's we had a cavalcade. Newham had a cavalcade last week and was very well received by people, and there will be local events that will go ahead. I think that we're in a bit of a lull now over Christmas because people are going about their Christmas festivities, but certainly the issue hasn't gone away. And we've seen today I mean, all these protests are having an effect because obviously the national protests, not just the local ones. But we have a resolution which was a very watered down resolution in the United Nations. And even then, having weakened the resolution, the United States just abstained on it. And that's the resolution is to create a conditions for a sustainable ceasefire in Gaza. So I suppose in a way that's progress, not the kind of progress we all hope for, but we have still the United States blocking any resolution that's going to come to the aid of the people of Gaza. But let's hope that can be built on. But yeah, I think the protest movement is having an effect, and even in the United States, we're seeing Biden his approval rating is really very, very low at the minute, and he's looking like he's going to lose the next election unless he does something. So we could have the president of the United States voted out because of his lack of action and lack of support for the people of Gaza and his enabling of a genocide.
In fact, as Steve has mentioned, the recent national protest in London was very, very big. And throughout the world, there's been national protests at the same time as local protests. Like in Southall, we had a huge protest. And starting from outside the Southall Town Hall, there was a rally. And then people boldly actually blockaded the main Broadway junction of Southall, sat down there. We had a sit-in, we had a long march from Southall Town Hall towards the mosque. And as the march progressed, more and more people joined in. So it became quite a huge protest in Southall, in which all sections of the community stood behind the Palestinian people. And the slogan was, Southall stands for Palestine. And there were members people from trade unions, people from community organizations, all religious backgrounds, the Sikhs, Christians, Muslims, everybody united as one in support of the Palestinian people. But also, it shows how this is putting pressure. The demand in Southall was that no councillor was allowed to speak, no representative of the Labour Party or any politicians were allowed to come to the platform. So the people are demanding that the world is polarizing in two sides. Those who stand on side of the Palestinian people on one side, that's the workers and people throughout the world against this. And then you got the big capitalists, multinationals, and of each country supporting Israel. So the class struggle within each country is sharpening around the question of Palestine, because people are realizing that their fight against the capitalist system within their own countries is an integral part of the overall struggle in support of Palestine, because it's the same imperialist countries, same big war industry companies who support the various governments, the governments are just their puppets in order to advance their interest. And our interest lies in peace throughout the world and a just cause for the Palestinian people. Ensure the struggles, and we're proud that they are becoming bigger and bigger, and more support from the people. That is what's putting pressure on the various governments throughout the world, especially during election times, which Steve has mentioned in the US, Britain, elsewhere. So it's the rising strength of people's struggle that is putting pressure on politician governments to take a stand. Otherwise, they wouldn't, because they really represent the interest of the war industry, the big capitalists, the financial oligarchs throughout the world. Proud of that, and we salute the efforts of all those who are militantly rising up and strengthening their struggle in support of the just cause of the Palestinian people.
The UK election coming up soon, isn't it? How will this have an effect?
I don't actually think it will. I mean, because the point is that the two main parties in Britain, the Conservatives and Labour, are kind of singing from the same hymn sheet. We have the British now actually calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. That's been the latest. I mean, Britain and Germany have joined the calls for the ceasefire. But Stammer, who is signalling to the ruling class that there's going to be no change if he's elected, was even tailing the Conservatives. He had an opportunity to go out there and do what 70% of British people wanted, over 70% of British people wanted, which was demand a ceasefire. But he didn't do that. He chose instead to allow the Conservatives to occupy that ground. So there is a possibility, of course, that independent candidates will stand or even a new party will form. But I mean, at the minute, that's kind of an outside possibility. A year's a long time in politics, I suppose, and that there's an opportunity for something to come about. But at the minute, the two main parties who I think, on balance, you'd have to say one of them are going to be in power after the election. They basically got the same policies on Gaza.
Have been killed in Palestine are our children. The women and daughters have been killed, they are ours. We stand on one side, the side of human rights for humanity. On the other side are the multinationals, the big capitalists who want to control the oil and wealth of the Middle East. It is for that profiteering that they are carrying human genocide. On the other side are us. Who is stronger? We are stronger because you have given a message that Southall has a proud tradition, stand against racism, against all atrocities, and you have lived up to that proud tradition and become a part of the worldwide movement of people throughout the world who are saying no to the genocide and see immediate ceasefire and no trust in any politicians. Any politician who stands on the side of injustice is not with us. We will stand for those, support those who stand shoulder to shoulder with us, fighting for human rights, fighting for social justice, and support for Palestine is a test case. Let's all stand for Palestine. Free Palestine!
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Yeah, I mean, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, and also mainstream parties represent the interest of the big capitalists and are closely allied with Israel. So it's not going to make any difference who comes to power because they're going to carry out with these same policies. However, in Southall, as nearly every speaker was saying the same message, that it's time we put forward our own candidates, those who support the Palestinian cause, those who support the struggles against privatization, against the erosion of the health service here, and all struggles are linked. So, as I said, struggles against privatization, struggles to defend the NHS, and also against the anti-worker legislation. So all these views were being put forward from the various speakers of Southall. It's time we bring forth those candidates who stand in support of people's interests and working people's interests, as opposed in opposition to the candidates for the mainstream parties who are supporting the interest of big capitalists and in supporting Israel and allying with the US and other countries such as Germany, US, and all these imperialist countries.
We'll move on to more of the UK news. So the junior doctor strike is to finish at 7 a.m. tomorrow after a 4-day strike, where they have prioritised urgent and emergency care, and consultant doctors have been covering junior doctors that make up to 50% of the doctor force. So there's an ongoing strike that's been happening with the doctors, and it doesn't seem that there is going to be a solution anytime soon. And it seems like there's a bit of a standoff going on. These strikes are impacting the public more than the government, and 1.1 million inpatient, outpatient appointments have been rescheduled and have resulted in delays to treatment. Are strikes really effective in getting the pay rise that they want, and what people might say that they don't necessarily need, as they're earning well above the minimum wage? And is there anything else they could be doing in order to get what they want?
And the fact of the matter is that junior doctors aren't well paid. Some of them are on as low as £14 an hour. So you can stack shelves in Asda's and get the same money if you're working nights. And I think it's disgraceful. And it's the reason why we've got hundreds of thousands of vacancies in the NHS, because over the past decade, people have lost about a third of their wages in real terms, and people are just fed up with it. They're not prepared to do that. I mean, I suppose people that go into the medical profession are not money money motivated anyway, but when they go in there, they expect to earn a decent living. They've got to study 5 years on top of their original degree, and they get a medical degree. And then if they want to progress, they've got to study more than that. So they make an enormous sacrifice. And people in the NHS are just leaving in droves because they're working absurd hours. Their work-life balance is in tatters. Patients are being harmed because of the vacancies that are there, and people have had enough. They're demanding a wage that will attract staff, and they should be supported in doing that. There's actually going to be a longest strike ever for union doctors. It's going to start on the 3rd of January, and that's going to go on to the 9th of January. And let's hope that the government actually do something and just don't sit there. Of course, yeah, it affects patients. I mean, it would be ridiculous to think otherwise, but this is bringing pressure on the government because the government ultimately responsible. There's been a solution reached in Scotland, and the Scottish government have come to an agreement with the doctors up there. So if they can do it, why can't they do it in England?
Well, again, if you look at it, whose interests do the governments represent? It is spending billions of pounds in order to support the Zionist state of Israel and its attacks on the Palestinian people. That money is taxpayers' money. And that is the money that should be used in order to fund the NHS, in order to give the junior doctors a fair pay. Instead, it's cutting down on the wages of the people in this country and increasing the profitability of the various companies who are making more and more profit, and also funneling our money, rather, towards supporting these unjust wars abroad, such as what Israel, the Zionist Israel is doing. So it really shows they're not interested in what inconvenience or how many people suffer in Britain. If that was the case, they'll be spending money on the quality of life of the British people and not sending billions of pounds and supporting Israel in its genocide of the Palestinian people. It's a class war taking place. They represent the interest of big financial oligarchs, the big war industry, and people are fighting for their rights that really we produce wealth in this country and it should be used for us, and none of our money should go towards unjust causes such as supporting Israel in its unjust war there.
If the doctors don't get a better pay following the strikes that are going ahead, could this eventually lead to the downfall of the NHS? And is the privatisation of the NHS inevitable, regardless of what actions the BMA take on in order to fight for a right to suitable wages that match the inflation rate?
The NHS is semi-privatised at the minute. I mean, if you walk into a reception in the NHS, you probably walk in, Virgin Active or something like that, in the Virgin Healthcare, and the cleaning has all been privatised. A lot of NHSs are run as trusts, so the semi-privatisation has taken place anyway, with a few managers creaming it, on hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. And I think that the Conservatives certainly ideologically want the NHS replaced, or certainly an openly hybrid system in place. And I think it's one of the oldest tricks in the book. If you underfund something and people become dissatisfied with it, and it becomes so bad that the staff are leaving in droves, which is what actually happens, then people will say anything is better than this, and I think that's part of the plan, because we've all seen how Moan and her colleagues really profited from the PPE crisis, and the vaccines that went out, and the PPE that wasn't suitable. 20 billion was spent on PPE that wasn't suitable. That would solve the junior doctor strike. Money would have solved the strike and every other NHS worker. So there's plenty of money for the Conservatives and their lackeys and their people, their friends in business, who've made a killing, literally and figuratively, off the NHS, but no money for the doctors. I don't think the privatisation is inevitable. I think what we have is people in this country of all shades of political opinion value the NHS, but I think that the danger is the erosion of the NHS year by year, and the sort of neglect by the government, the refusal to invest, will create a situation where it looks like it's not going to become tenable for people to work there in the numbers that we need to provide a national health service that is free at the point of delivery.
Yeah, I mean, the policy has been going on for years now, both under the Blair government as well as the Conservative government here. Erosion of the NHS, declining of the quality of service by the health sector, and they're trying to bring an American system where people be forced to take up insurance. The quality health service that was available will no longer be available, or we'll be having to take up insurance. And these big companies that will be providing medical service privately, they're going to become controlling the provision of health service more and more, making more and more profit for themselves. That's the direction in which all these parties are going, and supporting that direction. But at the same time, they know the people have been proud of the NHS. It's got a long history behind it. They are afraid of the backlash there, but the government are pushing ahead with their policies are like very similar to America, the private healthcare.
So just to round off this conversation about the doctors' strikes, what should the government do in order to end the strikes going ahead, and to help serve the doctors?
I could start negotiating in good faith with the union and reach a pay deal. I mean, that's as simple as that. If you want to keep people in the job, you need to pay them the going rate, and they're certainly not getting that at the minute. And we have a situation where we've got money squandered in this country left, right, and centre, and one of the most important institutions in the country, the NHS, is just being left to slowly decline. So they need to start paying people what they're worth and invest it in the NHS.
Yeah, I mean, they should offer pay deals above the inflation rate as a right of working people in this country. And the governments won't do that because they represent the interests of big capitalists, and they want to maximize profits for them. So these struggles are going to carry on. On one hand, the workers from all backgrounds sharpening their struggle against the capitalist class, which the governments are supporting. So this struggle is going to be carrying on. So we will always be on the side of people, working people, because they produce wealth and it should be used for them. Ultimately, only a different system can solve this problem. And that has to be a system in which people's decision making is in the hands of people. It will lead to that kind of system in which people are the decision makers and the economy serves them, and not the interest of big capitalist multinationals and all these imperialist countries.
You have a book launch on the 29th of January. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's going to be on the 29th of January at Bookmarks Bookstore, 1 Bloomsbury Road. That's by Tottenham Court Road. It's the SWP bookshop, and basically it's a kind of semi-autobiography going through my childhood in Derry, covering the Bloody Sunday massacre, which the British Army killed 14 civilians and wounded scores more. And basically through my life in the trade union movement and some of the political events that I've seen. And yeah, so I've written that, and hopefully you can come along to the book launch.
Oh, that's great news to hear, Steve, and we look forward to that because you've been quite active in the trade union movement throughout your life, and it'd be great to get a further insight into all those and use those lessons in order to advance the struggles further here.